Hi, welcome to Let 'Em Talk. I'm Paul DiRienzo. We got a great show for you today. Welcoming back one of my favorite guests, Cecily McMillan. Welcome back, Cecily.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and well, I wish we could have you on. Well, you know, the struggle is always a good reason to have somebody on. But I wish we could have one time we'll have come on and just talk about whatever. You know, the weather. But right now,
that'd be great. The pains of being 25 today with struggling student debt. Sure.
Right. I'd rather talk about that, but unfortunately we have to talk about serious issues here. And I know actually one of the main subjects why we're here is something you can't even really talk about. So I'll try and talk about it a little bit, and we won't focus, and I won't ask you any questions because you're in another legal case. Now let's start. Let me ask you first of all to introduce. I know you were here after spending 58 days in Rikers Island, that you were convicted of a felony, that felony had to do with Occupy Wall Street and your protesting and participation in a protest, that you fought hard, and we were able to actually, the activists of this community in Occupy Wall Street, to really hold down what could have been a very severe sentence to a severe enough but a more manageable sentence. And that was for pure political pressure that was put on the establishment.
I absolutely spoke about this today with my lawyer when I was in his office, actually as we started the preparation for the appeals process. And he told me that when they went before the board to make an appeal that I be let off with bail. I was being remanded without bail. When they went to the bail hearing, it was absolutely stated that they were attempting to send me upstate, which means to serve more than a year. So absolutely.
They were planning to do that.
Between that moment, which was, I think, 3 days after I was remanded, to, I think, what was 9 days later, all of the public pressure that came out, everything that everybody did, absolutely made the biggest difference by handing down a 90-day sentence.
Right, of which you served 58 of.
Absolutely.
But there are, I mean, we have to take, today is election day. Not that there's that much of a difference between the two people who are running, and not that it's in doubt who's going to win, but this is the first. You're 25 years old. You've been you could vote since you're 21, but no more, right?
Well, 18.
18. I'm sorry, 18. I'm sorry, 18.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it was a very bittersweet day for me.
It's
actually,
not alcohol.
I mean, unlike I guess most of my Occupy counterparts, I actually have always really believed in the prospects of the electoral process, especially when it's community-oriented. Having grown up in Southeast Texas, I began working on electoral politics with State Senator Nan Orrock, who is a trailblazer in especially representing Atlanta within the context of a very conservative state. I also worked on Congressman John Lewis's campaigns time after time after time before I found out many years later that he was the John Lewis of the Freedom Rides. And have even run 2 Occupy candidates as their campaign manager, both George Martinez.
Oh, George.
For,
He's been on the show.
And Jelani Mashariki. So, I mean, it was actually a really hard day for me. I got up, I read all the emails, I saw get out there to vote today. I even was like, oh man, I got to make sure to get out there to the polls, and then I realized.
Did you even try to register?
No, I mean, I can't. I mean, I even. Is
that permanent or forever or temporary?
Well, it is till the end of my term.
I see.
It's till the end of what could have been the maximum of my term. So it's 7 years. And even today, when I was looking at all of the emails, I had temporarily forgotten that I had a right to vote. And, I was going through my schedule like, oh, when am I going to make time to go to the polls? And it was then that I realized I can't vote. I mean, this is immediate. I was called in for jury duty. Irony, when I was in Rikers.
Do you have jury duty?
I cannot be called. I cannot serve.
For the 7-year period.
Yep. So when I got home, I received a jury summons and then a retraction. Sorry, you're a violent felon now. You can't perform jury duty.
A violent felon.
A violent felon. I mean, that is definitively a difference between a felon and a violent felon in terms of what jobs you're able to get. A felon who committed, for instance, fraud or embezzlement, like our bankers that certainly none of have received that distinction, they can go into a public school and be a public teacher. I, who have 3 teacher certifications, cannot teach in a public school.
Right. Okay, in New York or in the United States?
In the United States.
Right, I see.
That is a rule across the state.
So it's important for you to win this appeal, to fight this appeal and try and win it.
Absolutely, but I mean, I was listening to what was being said to me today about the appeals process, and on average, only 5% of cases that go to the appellate court are overturned, and of those 5%, about half of those are overturned in the appeals court. Mm-hmm. So all the way down to the fact that, you know, the DA's office has all this control in the courtroom. It's totally biased. You lose your case. You win in the appellate division. Then they have the option to bring it before at essentially 50% chance odds to win in the appeals courts. So essentially, I could be facing 18 months of a process win. Then it could be brought to the appeals court and lose. And from there, the only chance I would have to appeal it is if somebody gave me permission to present it to the state court, or to, after that, if I lost that, then to the federal courts.
And then it's the Supreme Court eventually down the line, right?
I mean, it's crazy.
That's a long way down the line.
The average amount of time that it takes in order to undergo the appeals process, the first round, is 18 months.
18 months.
So, I mean, I can't even think about a civil until after the criminal is over. I mean, it's constantly stacked against you. And as I was talking to my lawyers, now I have.
Yeah. Okay, who are your lawyers? Besides Marty Stoller, who was here on this show, did a great job and went viral when I put it on the internet. So you go to Let 'Em Talk, at youtube.com/letemtalk, LETEMTALK. Type in Marty Stoller, or just, I guess, Google Marty.
He's fantastic.
Yeah. And you can watch him talk about this case and get all the legal details from the lawyer who represented you, and he did a wonderful job of expressing it, and we showed the photograph and everything, so people can always follow up in more detail. Now, so we're talking about the original situation that got you involved, and we talked about that at length previously. The officer who grabbed you from behind, who grabbed you in a sexual manner, your natural instinctual response to push him away, and
sort of. I mean, again, in this sense, I mean, you have to delve into the natural inclination. My only natural inclination that evening was to take my hand and place it over an unidentified hand. So I didn't know it was a police officer. I didn't know it was a man.
Right.
I put my hand on top of his hand, like, what is this? And as he grabbed me upward, my hand being on top of his hand, he propelled the motion backwards. And every time that motion happens, it's going to be a 5'11" right in the...
Right. I could believe that, because I saw that kind of, I saw a lot of things at Occupy Wall Street that have, among the many things that led me to have you here on this show and to cover this so closely, because there were many situations where I saw mace used in a very vicious manner that were not reported. I mean, I have little videos here and there that I took, and just what I saw, I don't think that you're supposed to use mace as a way to get revenge against people, as a way to harass people, as a way to show your power over people. Every wrong reason I saw force used by the police. So, and also many policemen told me that Occupy was not violent. They knew it was not violent.
Well, certainly, I mean, what I've been trying to explain...
They tried to characterize it as violent, but it's not.
And as I've tried to explain to a number of people, the instances of the evening were not significant, other than the fact that they had hurt me so badly in the retaliation by the 6 officers who kicked and clubbed me, that the stimulus response was the seizure.
The actual arrest of you, after this had happened, where they arrested you, took 6 officers beating on you and dragging you to the...
I was unconscious. So as soon as my face...
You can see it. You look like a rag doll being dragged around.
So, I mean, the last thing I remember is my face slamming into the ground, and then we have a video that shows about a handful of officers beating and clubbing my completely unresponsive body into a seizure, or what appears to be a seizure. I'm not a medical professional. I've never had seizures before. So only in that response did they have to cover their heinies enough that they had to push this into trial in order to protect themselves from a civil suit. But at my home, we have a police brutality wall. You've seen it. On the badges that line the wall that says...
The old Quincy Street place, right?
Yes, we will not be silenced by your violence. There is no less than, I think, 80 individual stories of police violence that had occurred to Occupy activists. This was time and time again the normative response at Zuccotti Park, and ultimately it wasn't covered by the mainstream press. It was very much paralleled to the 60s, both in terms of the student movement, the civil rights movement, as well as the black nationalist movement. And ultimately,
and it was fundamentally a peaceful, nonviolent movement.
Absolutely. There was a statement. There was a statement
and
of
there was a
nonviolence.
political rage from the police that came out over, and in articles and things I've read since then, it's come out that the officers reacted the way they did because they were politically insulted. It was a political insult to them, and they were carrying out not normal policing activities that you would expect, in which policemen are trained and paid for, but they were actually taking pleasure in beating up people they didn't agree with politically.
Well, there, Paul, I would definitely have to disagree with you in the sense that I was a labor organizer working for an organization of staff analysts, often worked with several of the police in organizing municipal labor committee rallies to negotiate contracts. At one point, when the mic did not work, I actually taught the chief of police to use or the chief of the police labor union to use the human mic. I had an ample opportunity to talk about with police the messaging of Occupy Wall Street.
Well, but I'm not saying that the protesters or you or anybody harbored any feelings towards the police. What I'm saying is some of the policemen, not all of them, harbored some feelings against the protesters.
I would still have to say that if it was a matter of individual feelings towards the protesters, that I would not be so scared of the daunting consequences of where our state is now. I think that if it were a matter of feelings, then we could sit down at a table and we can discuss what dissent is and how it is American and how this isn't a protest against you.
So if it wasn't a personal anger because of the politics and the personal insult of the politics to these right-wing guys, what do you think it was?
Well, I think that ultimately the police, the NYPD, represent essentially the militia of the capital of what has become a corporatocracy. I don't think business in the United States is done anymore in D.C. I think it's done in the financial district. I think it's done at Wall Street. I think it's done in trading. And I think that we see that when we saw the bankers act with impunity at crashing the entire global market. I think that this is a money town. Corporations run amok, act with impunity, get people elected that represent their personal, political, and economic aims, and that the police then respond to those economic aims. And
so they were working on behalf of the corporate rulers of New York to crush dissent for a broad political reason.
I remember being in the back of a police car the first time I was arrested, October 2011, and screaming furiously, "I don't understand why you don't join my side. You're a part of the 99% too. You're getting screwed over too." And this guy goes, lady, shut up. Don't you understand that we agree with you? I have 2 kids that I can't put through college. When I went to CUNY, it was X amount. Now it's 5 times the amount. I have no idea how I'm supposed to take care of my kids, put them through college, if there will be any jobs after they get out of college, and take care of my mother, and take care of my sister. I totally agree with you. But the point is, rules are rules, orders are orders, you follow them, or you get a write-up. If you get a write-up, then you don't get an advancement. If you don't get an advancement, then you don't get higher pay. If you don't get higher pay, guess where your pension lies? In the dirt. Because when we graduate from our position here as police officers, we only get a pension equal to our last earning salary. You think I have any responsibility from the bottom up to decide who the police commissioner is or where the orders are coming from? You need to look at how the police are unionized. And when I did, it's shocking. They're unionized by division. There is no bottom-up control. There's no bottom-up critique. Even if these officers, black and brown officers per se, were to say, listen, I'm tired of being sent out into these neighborhoods that look like my neighborhoods and made to pick up people who look like my brothers, my sisters, my sons, and my grandfathers. they couldn't do anything about it.
Interesting. Cecily McMillan joining us here on Let Them Talk. Now, Cecily she can't talk about it, but I'll be happy to talk about it as much as I know, and you can always scream if I get it wrong. But sometime after this, while Cecily was awaiting trial, about a year after this incident that we've just been discussing, there was a situation where getting on the subway, and I've been there and seen this myself, two men were violently harassing people who were there on this platform. And when Cecily came by and asked them what was going on, and this is according to write-ups about the story, not from Cecily, but from the write-ups I read, that it turned out they were undercover police officers, that when she tried to videotape using her cell phone camera what they were doing, they arrested her, they took her in, and then they found out who she was, and upon finding out who she was, they escalated the treatment and gave her a very serious Class A misdemeanor that she's facing trial on the 15th. And folks who support Cecily are asking her supporters to go down to court on the 15th, same place, Center Street, and just look at the paper. I don't know what judge it is or what courtroom, but if you just look at the paper when you come in, after you go through the metal detector, look for Cecily McMillan's name and the judge and the floor that it's on in the courtroom. And that's going to be September 15th, right, in the morning. I'm sure at 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning. So be there, line up at 8 to get in for 9 o'clock in the morning. It's always a long line to get into 1 Center Street, the Tombs, excellent name for it. And Cecily could get up to 1 year in jail on one charge of obstructing governmental administration, which is the most nonsensical crime in the world. Nobody ever gets this kind of treatment for it, and they're obviously trying to get revenge against you, in my opinion, my humble, not your opinion, my opinion. All right, and that this is a continuing vindictive actions, prosecutorial vindictiveness, I call it,
right,
against Cecily McMillan for her political stance and to make an example of her for the rest of the activists and what they stand for. But they couldn't arrest everybody, they couldn't beat up everybody, so they're taking one person as an example for everybody. So that's why we have to take her as an example, and we have to go to court and fill the courtroom and help out Cecily on the 15th.
Certainly, yeah, as a misdemeanor, certainly a nonviolent misdemeanor, I would say. Yeah. It's not even required that the police take you into cuffs, book you, hold you, and have it resolved before a judge. They can simply write you a ticket, desk appearance ticket.
Right.
And
no, they figured out, in my opinion, my humble opinion, they knew who you were and they went after you. Now, and I think they said make statements to that effect while you were in custody. You know, clearly that's what they were going to do. And as soon as they found out who you were. So we'll be there on the 15th. We're going to support you on the 15th. I mean, that's an important thing to do because obviously this is a very serious situation that's being created here by the prosecutors here in New York in order to take out their revenge. And we have to see what are they getting revenge against? The fact that Commander Bologna was reprimanded for, was he ever even reprimanded for spraying mace on those innocent people who were just sitting there doing nothing?
Not to my knowledge.
Nothing ever happened to him, right? He just was embarrassed for a few days in the media, but that's all forgotten now. The many cases of people being maced, the many cases of force that I saw used by the police department, the attempts to prevent people from having to assemble and have their right to protest, the attempt to basically use the police as sort of a political police to prevent people from exercising their fundamental First Amendment rights. And
a structure that I would like to clarify, and this is why I talk about the police commissioner and the entire system here being really what we ought to be focusing on. The system of taking down Zuccotti, the system of systemically clearing Zuccotti, not just the first time, but then cleaning the park on St. Patrick's Day at midnight.
Power
schedule.
washing.
Yeah,
Power washing.
From a company, outside company that never does that, that it was actually a public.
The implication that the protesters were some sort of filth to be power washed away.
Well, what's important about this power washing away is the acts that were orchestrated by the NYPD here were then replicated, not just nationwide, such as all the way out to California, but they were replicated worldwide. And if you study the ways in which the police systemically took down these occupations, it really suggests not even just a problem of New York and Wall Street, possibly our government, but sort of a neoliberal order that seeks to shut down a critique on the growing wealth inequality within the world order. I mean, it's crazy how coordinated it was.
Do you have is there contact information for people who want to know more about what's going on?
You can go to www.justiceforcecily.
Number 4.
Either.
Yeah. Oh, what? Good.
.com.
Justiceforcecily.com.
Yeah, and then also there's my Twitter, Cecily McMillan. Also hashtag Justice for Cecily. Certainly you can find me on Facebook and join the various events there. But beyond just coming out to support me, I mean, really the importance of this struggle in this time, why specifically I stood up and I refused to say, no, I am not guilty of the first charge.
Yeah, I was going to ask, why did you take such a stand? I mean, this is a stand. Well, did they offer, this is a question people ask me all the time, and I'll ask it to you now. Were you offered some sort of deal early on and turned it down in order to fight in court and then lose and be given a worse sentence? Is that what really happened? So
the district attorney's office specifically and outright lied when asked, was she given the opportunity to take a misdemeanor? I was never given the opportunity to take a misdemeanor. I was given the opportunity to take a plea to felony, second degree, assault on a police officer. Not just like, oh, oops, I accidentally assaulted you, but I assaulted you with the clear and conscious attempt to keep you from doing your duty on behalf of the public. If I pled to that, they would not send me to jail. I could not, in good conscience, as a nonviolent organizer or as a citizen of America, in which my parents bestowed, just like most people's parents bestowed, in them the value of honesty, of standing up for yourself, of standing up for what you believe in, stand before this court and say, I did something I did not do. I could not be shamed as a woman with rape culture into saying, I asked for it. I could not do that. I think it's something that almost every individual would urge their children to stand up for themselves on. And ultimately, it comes down to the same situation here with the misdemeanor. They said, take the misdemeanor, and we will give you 500 hours of community service. I will not apologize for being a good citizen. I will not apologize for following through as I grew up what it meant to not only exercise the rights of this country, but protect them, to stand up for my fellow brethren, my brothers and sisters who are citizens, who are my neighbors in this country. That's what we are supposed to be doing, and we've gotten so lost from that we're all under attack and we're all without agency unless we have the opportunity to buy it. And ultimately, that's why I'm asking people to come out to court on Monday. I had something that most people, every person that I met in Rikers did not have. The privilege and the support, the love of a community, the white privilege, the cultural class privilege, to stand up for myself in a court of law, to say I did not do this, and to know that there would be a community and a people that would stand up and support me. I did not meet another single inmate in my entire time at Rikers who went to trial. And so I'm asking people to come out on Monday in order to see what the joke of our justice system is, that there is no justice, that there is no innocence. There is no innocence until proven guilty. There is only guilty until proven not guilty, and nobody gambles on those odds. If nobody's going to trial, that suggests that trial no longer works, that it's no longer a functioning aspect of our rights where you can stand up for yourself and say, this is wrong.
You have a word for it, kangaroo court?
Yes.
And for the most
or a show trial.
Well, you were in Rikers for 58 days. You met a lot of people. You've been involved in doing. We don't have a lot of time, but tell me some of the things you've been doing to help the folks in Rikers that you met since you've been out.
Well, I was going to Rikers at least once or twice a week to visit the women that had become my friends and family there, the women that I wholeheartedly believe now to be political prisoners, every single one of them, in the sense that our government has set them up without jobs, without resources, has confined them to essentially an underworld, said, survive if you can. And when those women survive, as they do, take care of their friends, their families, their communities, their children, then they're put into prison for it. That's a political prisoner to me. And I went back again and again to stand with them, literally on that island, until I was informed that I am not allowed as a felon to go to Rikers Island.
When did they tell you that?
On pain of imprisonment. At orientation recently, August 21st. It's not within the terms anywhere of...
How did this happen? Tell me what happened.
Well, it's not within the terms anywhere of my probation.
But how did it actually happen? You were trying to go inside to
No,
to visit?
I went to orientation and was...
What's orientation?
So when you are when you are further imprisoned with probation, it's kind of like house arrest, essentially. You have to go through an orientation process.
I see.
And through orientation, they bring up all sorts of rules and regulations that are actually not included within the terms of your probation. For instance, my probation says that I'm confined to the territories as represented by the courts unless I receive permission otherwise, which means the state of New York. In my probation orientation, I am told that I am only allowed to go to the 5 boroughs and 2 neighboring counties. It doesn't say anywhere in my probation that I cannot go to Rikers Island to visit my friends or my family.
Did they single you out to tell you that you could not go to Rikers Island?
No, the rules just don't line up.
Right.
They don't, and that's what I'm saying.
And this is after you went a few times.
Oh, absolutely. So I went back every week to organize what is essentially an inmate investigatory cell. So there are women in Rikers Island who are currently mobilizing and organizing to report upon the injustices being spewed out them on a daily basis on behalf of not only the correctional officers, but in our case, really frequently the medical staff, in which the negligence can lead to death, does lead to death.
And does, it has.
Yeah.
Now we have people who've died who were left in cells that overheated and they actually roasted to death in their own cell.
Now those are the spectacle stories that we hear about, and those are true. Now imagine the everyday circumstance in which you have an ulcer in your stomach. Very routine, you can go and you can get medication for that. Now imagine not being able to see a specialist, a doctor, for up to 6 weeks. Imagine if that ulcer grows and implodes inside of you, leaks your bowels into your body, and you die essentially of an infection.
So this is what's going on right now.
Routine
in
negligence. These folks who are constantly targeted, who I would like to say I experienced in Zuccotti Park for a mere few months, what these folks in Rikers Island experience as the everyday circumstances of their life.
All right, thank you very much. The last 10 seconds, we need another half hour to talk about this in depth. Thank you very much, Cecily McMillan, and good luck on the 15th. We'll all be in court with you, and we'll see you next week.